What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to NeverLag. I'm one of your hosts, Levi, joined by the man who fell in the pit, Zach. And this, of course, is NeverQuest, our weekly casual show where we light some candles. No, that's weird. Where we just sit down and talk about whatever we feel like talking about and probably what games we've been playing. So if you're into it, you can support us over on Patreon at patreon.com/NeverLag. You can, of course, support us right here by doing what you're doing, watching here on YouTube or listening wherever you get your podcasts from. So thank you for that. And let's get into it. What's new, Broseph?
Yeah. Well, just enjoying the candles and the wonderful mood lighting that we have we have set here.
Really
While
setting
we
the
talk
mood here at
about
NeverQuest.
there's nothing sexier than Elden Ring, and that's exactly what I've been playing for a couple of
Than a
weeks
man with a bag of Cheetos sitting in his sweats playing video games.
now.
Nothing
I'm
more
talking about there's
attractive.
nothing sexier than Elden Ring itself. The player is probably going to vary from person to person and snack to snack.
And snack to snack, definitely. Is that what you want to start with, Elden Ring, or do you want to start with this video that I sent you earlier? I
Oh,
suppose
that's
they're
right. Yeah.
similar.
Yeah, we'll talk about what we're playing in a minute, which is going to be us just going on about Elden Ring. But um, yeah, pull up the article. So for context,
I
we've
don't
been
have the
laughing
article.
at
I have the video. Do you
or
have an
that's
article
right.
open?
It's no, it's a YouTube video. But if you pull
Yeah,
up the
it's from.
video in the description, it has all of the different uh,
Yeah, I thought this
things
was
in it.
funny. It's from GameSpot. Lucy James over at GameSpot, and she's talking about if you're finished with Elden Ring, what games can help fill the void in your soul. And what's funny is I immediately read this title and just kind of laughed because, like, not to be, not to be over dramatic, but there really isn't a game like Elden
Mm-hmm.
Ring. So I was just like, yeah, right. And then I just thought some of these entries were funny. I mean, it of course mentions all of the Souls like, which of course is a natural progression. If Elden Ring is your first
Sure.
entry
Yeah.
into the FromSoft formula, then of course go back and play the other ones. I mean, everything is similar other than the fact that they're not open world. But a few of these were kind of funny, and I get it. Like it makes sense. You're done with Elden Ring. People are trying to figure out what to play
What should I
next.
play
Like these
next? Yeah.
these all are the correct answers. It's just the premise is a nonsensical question.
It's funny.
You
Hey,
know,
that life changing experience you had that was like nothing that came before it. Well, here's 10 more things just like it.
exactly. So
Like,
I
how
think
do
we were
you
talking a little bit about this. The funniest one I found was Horizon being on this list.
Horizon
It's
Forbidden
like
West?
it's a new open world game, so it's like Elden Ring. You know, I mean, everything we've talked about with Horizon, it's kind of the opposite of Elden Ring. It's the Ubisoft style, right? With all the map markers and the protagonist talking to you nonstop, trying to tell you where to go and what to do.
Yeah.
Ironically, there's also Assassin's Creed Odyssey on this list, which is just ironic because you have the memes of people like making fun of if Elden Ring were made by Ubisoft, which that is what Assassin's Creed Odyssey is. It's kind of the poster child for that whole just the way they do their open world games. So I don't know. Did anything else jump out to you?
Just the whole thing. As soon as you told me, you're like, "Hey, I found a video on 10 game or 12 games like Elden Ring." My first thought is it's going to list all the Souls games in Sekiro. It's going to have Breath of the Wild, and I'm correct. That was number Souls and Sekiro. They grouped at least into one. Breath of the
Yeah.
Wild was number two, and then The Witcher is on there, which is not surprising. Horizon Forbidden West is hilarious because it couldn't be further from the truth. But Skyrim is another one that I really found funny. The last one on here is Skyrim itself. First of all, I think who hasn't played Skyrim at this point? I guess you.
I haven't.
Okay.
So I have no
I was
idea.
making
And
this.
to be honest, I feel like Skyrim is, I mean, combat aside, is probably one of the closest. No? I mean, it's an open world fantasy RPG.
It is. It's just Skyrim to me. Maybe this. I don't know if this is a hot take or a bad opinion or both, but I've
They're
always felt
usually synonymous.
yeah, fair enough. So you can hate me all you want for this. I'm probably wrong. Skyrim never clicked for me. I mean, it wasn't. I understand what everyone liked about it. I loved its predecessor, Elder Scrolls 4, which was Oblivion. Skyrim always felt like a shallow ocean to me. There's a lot to go and see. It's a big open world to explore, but it just never felt meaningful. There
Fair.
again, there was some cool parts to it for sure, but yeah, it kind of felt like a shallow ocean, and I think the reason that feels so different from Elden Ring is because Elden Ring is all about surprise and finding these meaningful little interactions and uh, bits of lore and side quests. And maybe I'm wrong. It's been a long time since I've played Skyrim, but it kind of feels like
Oh,
it's reaching a little bit there.
gotcha.
Um, yeah, Witcher
I don't know.
Witcher's an
The
interesting
only
one.
other, yeah. I mean, that's clearly, she says it in the video, that's based off the world, which I don't know, haven't played that one. I hear the world is very immersive and expansive, and I don't know, is it a puddle as well, or is there a lot of depth going on in that world?
Witcher, I think there's a lot more depth, but a lot of the depth is revolving around the characters and the narrative of the story itself. So it's a very different game in that sense. It's a big
Okay.
world, but I think a lot of what pulled me through The Witcher was just the characters and wanting to know what happens in the story. Elden Ring, there's a little bit of that, but it's more like just getting lost in a world, uncovering some of the lore of like what this world is. And of course, there are some main story beats, characters you meet. You're trying to become the Elden Lord. With The Witcher, it's more like a character drama of Geralt and
Much more story driven, yeah.
much more story driven about what's going on with him and the people in his life, and Ciri, who's a younger up and coming Witcher, and the dynamic of how Witchers are seen by society at large. There's other plot elements there too, but it's a much more narrative driven story, which is a really interesting mix with such an open world game. Um, so Horizon Forbidden West probably falls in here too, because I think there's more of a narrative element to that one. So I feel like Horizon Forbidden West or Witcher are not bad picks if you want to be in a large, expansive fantasy world that pulls you in but has a bit more story. Um, I think if you just want to be immersed in an open world and kind of explore, Breath of the Wild is probably the next best thing on this list if you haven't played it
Yeah.
already.
I mean, for me, if you enjoyed Elden Ring, to me it was for two reasons, and I'm sure there are more, but these are the broad strokes here. It was the combat, the depth of combat, the difficulty of overcoming in the combat, and then it was the world, and the fact that you had to explore the world on your own without anyone or anything really explicitly telling you where to go or what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so the combat is a much easier comparison to a lot of things. Like we already talked about, everything from FromSoft, yeah, go play it. The combat is as good or better in some of their other games, in my opinion. As well as, the Surge, I've heard mixed things about. I tried it out, didn't click with me. I've always wanted a sci-fi version of what FromSoft does, and I've heard good things about the Surge too. I don't know. I haven't been able to get into it yet, but of course the combat is similar. Neo, people love Neo combat, very similar. Um, Code Vein, very similar. So if you're looking for combat, there are comparisons out there. But to me, if you're looking for what the open world had to offer in Elden Ring, it kind of starts and stops with Breath of the Wild. Um, I really can't think of another open world besides. I mean, these two games are kind of in a class of their own when it comes to the world design and the way they let you explore it without
Yeah.
intervening or intruding in any way. Every other
Yeah.
game on this list, Breath of the Wild, um, let me see here. What was the other one? Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The ones I've played, um, they're open world, but they're just conceptually very different from the start.
Yeah.
Um, I always find it funny here. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is mentioned. Man, people loved this game, and I honestly couldn't get through it. I found the combat to be so I don't know, it just felt inaccurate.
Yeah.
Like
The combat was a
like it
little
was
clunky.
yeah, it was trying to be Sekiro without how tight Sekiro plays, and it just frustrated me. And so I didn't really like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, but a lot of people
I
did. It made the list here.
I would say I liked it. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. Like, I love what they were trying to do with it. I think they did some great things. I just don't think they stuck the landing. Like you said, the combat was not tuned quite correctly, I don't think. And so it was challenging, but it often was frustrating. I mean, it often was frustrating because
for the wrong reasons.
For the wrong reasons, and not because
Yeah.
you need to just practice and learn patterns better, but because it just didn't always work as intended. Um, and also the fact that I think it starts out really strong technically and graphically, and it's like they put a ton of effort into the first quarter of the game, and then they ran out of time, and so the second, third, and fourth quarters of the game, there's like a huge degradation and fidelity, at least at the time. It's been a long time since I
Yeah.
played it.
Yeah,
So,
that was my experience as well. So
um,
before, oh, did you have
yeah.
more?
No, I was just gonna say, like, if you like Star Wars, it's kind of an interesting comparison. If you want a challenging game and you also like Star Wars, I guess that fits. But it's a kind of a niche recommendation in my opinion.
I think you could certainly do worse. It just
Because
didn't
Star
click
Wars
with
is
me,
so niche. Yeah,
yes,
you could do
exactly.
worse.
Quick shout out before we wrap up on this video to Ashen. If you have not played Ashen and you like what FromSoft does, Ashen is such a cool game. It's honestly, if I had to pick one game that has done the Souls-like formula, apart from FromSoft, and did it in a way I truly enjoyed. I mean, their own thing. It's not exactly what FromSoft did, but it's obviously a Souls-like game. There's a lot of mimics out there. I think Ashen is one of the best ones, and it's, I think, my favorite. So it has a very neat pastel, simplistic art style. The combat is solid and responsive and feels good to play. And I had a blast playing this game. It's not terribly long. I think it clocks in around 12 to 15 hours. I mean, depending.
I might need to prioritize
And there is some
this.
DLC. What was that?
I might need to prioritize this.
Absolutely. This game is actually really cool. I thought the art and the world and everything in this game was just on point. And there's some really cool sections where there's a lot of underground and dark areas where you have lantern mechanics and things like that. And I part of it for me, I mean, obviously for anyone, I think art style is a big thing. You kind of have to click with a game, and Ashen really clicked with me. So I don't know. Check it out if you haven't played it. And yeah, I mean, as far as prioritize, you've got a laundry list of games, but
I do.
Ashen is a very good one. So
yeah, this looks cool. I'm looking at some of the artwork. I'll put an overlay over the video as well. But some of the bosses look really neat. I'm more enjoying Souls games these days. And when you said that it's like 12 to 15 hours, that kind of had me, because I would love some shorter games to get through. As much as I love the sheer expansiveness of Elden Ring, it's kind of nice to have smaller bites in between.
yeah,
So
especially
cool. I'll
after,
check. Yeah,
if you ever
totally.
finish Elden Ring.
Yeah, we'll see, and maybe in 5 years. But before we move on from this, one other
That's
thing I wanted
generous.
to add is I was trying to think of what games would I recommend if someone wanted something to give them a feeling like Elden Ring. The only other thing I could really come up with was Hollow Knight, and that's a very, very different game, but it's much larger than you first think it's going to be. It's got a lot of depth in the storytelling is very subtle and very lore driven. You kind of uncover little bits and pieces along the way. There's a real style and kind of like ambience to the world. And then the combat is also very fine tuned and difficult. It's a Metroidvania, so in some ways it's very different. But honestly, I think Hollow Knight might be one of my go-to picks for someone who wants something after they play Elden Ring that hits a few emotions that you might feel. And it's a very different game, but I actually think Hollow Knight would be higher on the list for me than many of the ones on this list. So
Yeah, I think that's an awesome call out that for some reason I didn't really think to bring up, even though I've compared Hollow Knight to FromSoft to a Dark Souls game a lot. I think it even has better comparisons to Elden Ring with the world. And if I had to, I think you're right. If I had to pick one game that properly encapsulates what Elden Ring does from combat to exploration, I think it's actually Hollow Knight. Granted, it's on a 2D
so.
space, but it doesn't tell you where to go. It's very hands off with its world. You have to explore and use subtle cues to navigate a world that is it's not as big as Elden Ring, but compared to most games, it's quite massive. Actually, it just keeps going. I remember playing Hollow Knight and thinking the exact same thing, like, oh, I'm probably near the final zone or in the final zone, and then there were like 5 more. So yeah, incredibly similar. And like you said, the combat is very tight, very difficult. And there's like 40 boss fights in that game as well. So that might actually
Yeah.
be the best Elden Ring comparison. And it was omitted from this list because it was discriminated against because of its 2D nature, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Two-dimensional
What
hate
did we
crime
decide
is
that
what we
was?
have going on here.
I hate crime. Well, I hated
I
it.
forget what we called it. I chose hate crime, which seems like an escalation, but yeah, I think
Dimensionalist. That's what it is.
dimensionalist. Yeah.
It's being dimensionalist.
GameSpot is being dimensionalist here.
Unbelievable. In
Another
2022.
I know it's what is this, the 1800s? Another reason I think Hollow Knight is a great recommendation is because it's comparative to many other open world games. It's just not played as much. Like, I know within the Metroidvania genre, it's very popular, but when I talk to gamers who don't play Metroidvanias, like the majority of ones I know have never played Hollow Knight. And I just think more people would benefit from playing that. Breath of the Wild's the obvious other comparison that I would give. But I think more people have played that. So yeah.
Also, its combat is nowhere near similar
Mm-hmm.
in design, in execution, none of it. I mean, if there's something I wish Breath of the Wild did better, it would be combat for sure. I mean, it's serviceable, but it's nothing to write home about, really.
Yeah. Well, and Hollow Knight also has a little bit of that melancholy feeling throughout the game. It's just built into the lore and the world and the places that you visit. And FromSoft games typically have kind of this dark, morose ambiance. And so I think that may be the number one pick. And it's funny that GameStop doesn't list it. GameSpot, not GameStop.
GameStop. So there you go. If you're looking for something, our NeverLag's recommendation is Hollow Knight, and also mention or a quick shout out to Ashen. Check that game out. But speaking of Elden Ring, I assume you haven't beaten it yet.
I actually did.
Wow.
I mainlined the campaign in about 3 hours. I did not cheese it at all. I'm just kidding.
I actually saw on YouTube earlier there was like a 10-minute, someone beat Elden Ring in 10 minutes somehow, and I was like, I have to know what you did, but I can't know yet because I'm not there.
I can't imagine you can even run the breadth of the map in 10 minutes. Like,
he just pulled apart the ones and zeros and just like input a secret code and rolled the credits. That's all he did. I'm sure there's no way.
Maybe he's making use of, like, I don't know, weird hidden teleportation things or something. I don't know. That seems impossible to me, because I think, what's the fastest speed run for Breath of the Wild? I feel like I remember hearing someone did it in like 20 minutes and not being amazed. So if someone beat mainlined Elden Ring in less than that, that just doesn't sound like
there's some cheesy
I'll
stuff.
see it when I believe it. Even with cheesing, I feel like if you cheese Elden Ring, you still need a couple hours, but I guess I'm not a speedrunner, so
yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the game ends. Maybe it ends in the very place you start. Who knows?
I guess what is an end?
what is time, really?
Is the end Tree Sentinel? Because in that case, I've beat it.
There you go. Only 40 hours in.
Let's do that YouTube video of watch NeverLag mainline the game in 15 minutes, and then it's just us beating Tree Sentinel.
And then rolling our own credits.
And then rolling credits.
So, like, where are you at these days? I mean, I know you wrapped up the Academy from what we were discussing.
So, mild to slightly moderate spoilers for Elden Ring. I guess we'll put a timestamp. You can skip ahead. We'll try not to go super hard on specific things, but if you really don't want to hear stuff,
I mean, we're over a month after release, so there will be some spoilers here.
Yeah, and just giving a heads up, because there's probably others like myself who are very slow at this game. So, or leave it playing in the background, but plug your ears and your eyes. That way we get the views, but you're not spoiled.
Listen to it like a podcast, but also mute it.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So yeah, I'm, I think that Lake Liurnia is the, I don't know, would you call that the second or third major area, depending on the order you go in?
I would say the second. It's the intended second area.
Yeah, the intended second major area. Like, north of Limgrave after you get through Stormvale Castle. And since we last have been on NeverQuest, I beat Stormvale Castle. I beat Godric, the main boss in the castle, and I've explored the majority of the lake area. In the lake, there's an academy, like kind of that goes up into the sky, like sitting on a rocky precipice. And it's kind of this giant arcane monument. And yeah, so I finished that late last week. Beat the second kind of main story, but I guess if you count Margit as a boss, it's the third main story boss, which is Rinola.
I would say it's the second.
You think? Margit's pretty tough.
Margit's the gatekeeper. Yeah, he's tough, but like if we're talking about main story,
I think
there's only a few. There's only a few Elden Lords or whatever they're called in the game.
Yeah, I guess you don't get a great rune from him.
Yeah, if you get a great rune from him, I think they're not to dismiss Margit. He's certainly a great boss and a very difficult one.
The second like dungeon boss that you get a great rune from, that is very much like you're going through a big dungeon before you get to the boss, which is Rinola. So I beat that, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago. It was tough, man. We could talk about that for a minute, but since then I've kind of finished exploring the lake area. There is a kind of fortress to the north that has this big manor full of creepy spider hands or hand spiders. Would it be hand spiders or spider hands? It'd be hand spiders. I would
say hand spiders. Yeah,
because they're human hands that crawl around.
Spider hands are like jazz hands, but different.
Yeah, or like if spiders had hands. Which,
oh God, please, that would just.
That's not making. I'm not comfortable with this image.
Well, I mean, which is worse still. I mean, hand spiders are pretty awful in the game.
They're pretty bad. I mean, so they're little. They're these giant hands that crawl around after you, like straight out of nightmares. So I went and did that, and there's some things north of Hand Spider Manor that progress certain storylines. So I did that. There's a couple of dragons in Liurnia you can find, so I found and fought those. And now I've kind of progressed to the next section, which is where you get a quest from the northern Lake Liurnia area that sends you back to Limgrave and kind of instructs you to find this underground region. So now I'm in this underground zone. I've met up with a key character that you meet in that area, and I'm kind of going down that line of questing. So that's where I'm at.
So, I mean, last I saw you, this key character, which I guess we will not name. Have you progressed that any further since last year? Not really.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just go spoilers.
Have you gone to the lands down under yet? I mean, we're talking spoilers here. I mean, you went and talked to this is Caria Manor in the northwest.
Hand Spider Manor, also known as Caria Manor.
Also known as, exactly. And later on, you find, what is her name? Ronnie. You find Ronnie, and also, well, I guess not. You find Blythe and Celovus and EG. The whole crew is there. You join the crew, and she asks you to go do the thing underground, meet Blythe. Have you been able to do that yet?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I met up with Blythe, the wolf dude, underground, and he was basically like, I got things covered down here. You should go meet up with Celovus, who's like kind of like the wizard apprentice of Ronnie. So I was like, all right. But I was like, you know,
monumental tool.
He's a total jerk, but Blythe is very cool. But he's like, I got this underground giant cavern of covered. And by the way, that cavern, so you find an elevator in the forest of Western Limgrave, and it just descends for like, I don't know, it's probably 20 to 30 seconds, but it feels like minutes. And
at first you think it's a dungeon. You're like, oh, I'm going into one of these dungeons I've been doing, which are smaller experiences that take probably anywhere from a half an hour to, I will say average a half an hour, unless they're an overly difficult one, right? And so you're like, oh, okay, it's one of those, do, and you hop in this elevator, it starts glowing, and it just descends for like 10 minutes, and all of a sudden you're underneath everything in this. What's funny is you step out and it looks like you're in space, and you're like, what is happening? Like, what is so this game?
Well, because it goes so far. It does. You're not just underground. Like, you might be imagining like a couple of caves. Like, you go for like a minute you go just through like ground, and then it opens up and you're in like a Grand Canyon sized cavern under the ground. But instead of it just being
An
dark or
underground
rocky,
city.
it's like an underground city. And it's like you
Yeah.
said, it's like stars all across what looks like the sky, but it's maybe the bottom of the underground cavern. I don't fully understand the
Yeah, I don't know if
physics.
it's I don't know if it's like just um why am I thinking of geometry? But if it's just I don't know if it's just rocks kind of glistening or something.
Yeah.
Because at first it does just
Is
look
it
kind of like this.
bioluminescence, or is it
There you
some
go.
weird
It's
geospatial
bioluminescence.
magic? I don't know.
Exactly. So at first you think it's like some ethereal, you think you've somehow gone to a different dimension.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain areas where you can kind of see it's actually like caverns and ceilings, and it's rock. It's just it has a starlight quality from a distance, and it makes it such a an ethereal looking place. It's very otherworldly, and does not at all feel like you've gone underground. It's pretty neat what they did with it.
Super cool. And I actually stumbled across this elevator. So I started a game on PS5 before switching to PC, like when the game first came out. And that was one of the first things I discovered. I went down it and was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here yet. So I left. So it was cool to start exploring it. And then I met up with Blythe, the wolf guy, the wolf knight. And he was like, I got this. Don't worry about it. Go find Celavis. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm pretty tough. I'm still going to explore here before I find Celavis. So I start running through it. There's these guys with magic arrows that one shot you, and they like follow you or
Those
something.
guys.
Anyway, I died 5 times before I listened.
They're making
to
the
Blythe.
list, man. I think they're going to make the list of worst
They're-
enemies
yeah.
in the game.
Yeah, so I died like 5 times. I was like, you know what? I probably should have listened to Blythe. I'll let him.
And by the way, that's a terrible summarization of Blythe's interaction. He has no idea what's going on. He's like, I can see the city, but I have no idea how to get to it. Go ask Celavis. So
Right.
he's telling you to go figure out.
He says, I got things down. He literally says something like,
He's
I
like,
have things under
I'll
control
continue
down
to
here."
stand right here and do nothing.
Right.
You go talk to Celavis.
That is basically what he's doing.
I'll continue to be an NPC.
Yeah, he really could have said, hey, if you go 200 feet to the north, you're going to get absolutely demolished by magic
That would
arrows.
have been more helpful of him.
But yeah, so I did that. So I went back up above ground, went and found Celavis, and I've progressed some story stuff with him. He asks you to take a potion to Nefeli, who is like a barbarian warrior chick. You actually meet Nefeli in Stormvale Castle before you fight Godric, depending on how much you explore. So I'd actually met her already. Yeah, so I had to like go find Nefeli and help her with some stuff. And then you can decide like to either give her the potion or not. This is where actually one of my mild critiques of the game comes into play is I got so confused trying to figure out how to progress the storyline that I had to look up to make sure I wasn't missing certain steps because I wasn't sure where to find Nefeli or what I should exactly be doing for Celavis. So I ended up looking up just a couple of things to make sure I was doing the right things, because Elden Ring will often like have a character be like, you know, this is the darkness and I must consider what I will do with the village. And what that means is go find this lady in a village somewhere. You know, it's like super obtuse sometimes what you're exactly supposed to do next, which is partly what I love about it. But there are times where it's like, I really wish I had a little bit better of a sense. Or like, you know, in this particular case, Celavis, the wizard, he wants you to give this potion to Nefeli. Seems like there's some kind of nefarious reason, like this potion will allow him
Clearly
to
he's
gain...
not a good guy and something
He's a
bad
jerk.
is happening.
Yeah, it feels like it's gonna give him some kind of power over her, and she's cool. Like she comes in clutch in the Godric fight. If you like, you can summon her as an ally, and she's just kind of a cool character. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, and so I didn't give it to her. Something it took me way too long to realize is like you can talk to another guy in Round Table Hold who is actually like her adoptive father, and he will say, you know what, let's play a trick on Celavis. Give me the potion, I'll destroy it. And you can just tell Celavis that we gave it to her. And I love that as a storyline. You just decide to lie to this guy. And what's funny is you go back and tell Celavis and he's like, okay, great, thanks. Like he just believes that you've done it even though you haven't. So I love everything about that, but trying to make sure I was connecting the pieces, and like I would sometimes go talk to Gideon, Nefeli's like adoptive father. He wouldn't have like a dialogue option, and it's because I didn't go and talk to Nefeli in the other room, and then she's in a different village for a minute and you have to go kill something to help her, and then she's in the basement of Round Table Hold. There's just a lot of weird things that you have to do in the right order, and it gives you very minimal direction as how to do it. I don't know how you fix that because it's part of what I love about the game, but it
Yeah.
was a little frustrating. And thankfully I could look it up and I was like, okay, here's the couple of pieces I was missing. I just did a couple of things in that order and I'm off to the races now. So,
Yeah. I've kind of been wrestling with that same problem, because yeah, I think the answer is they need to just tweak the dial just barely. Like, I don't want them to go overboard, but just a little bit here and there would go a long way. Like
turn it
if
from
when
1 to 2.
Yeah, or from well, 1 to 2 is a big step. Let's say it's at 1 to 1.3. I don't know. I want a delicate turn here,
Let's,
but
let's not get too semantic here. Let's say 1 to 2 out of
one.
73.
Okay, that's perfect. I like it.
Yeah.
So if Celovus had said, "Hey, go give this to Nefeli," I have intel that says she's back at Round Table Hold. Like, there you go. That's all you need. Like, because there is really no indication, at least from what I found. Maybe there is, but there's no indication of where she is at all. Last you
Correct.
saw her was at Stormvale Castle. She didn't really give any indication as to her goals other than, she's trying to fight. So I mean, I guess you could make the logical conclusion, well, I'm trying to fight too, and I'm a not an ashen one. What's this game? The
Tarnished.
what are you called? Tarnished. So maybe she's a tarnished. Maybe she's back at. It's just a lot of leaps you have to make.
Mm-hmm.
And if they just gave you a little bit more intel about, hey, I hear this person might be in this area or that area now or whatever, I think that would solve a lot of the problem, because I'm fine with the ambiguity regarding the quest. I like that this very, very sketchy dude is telling you to give what seems like a pretty cool character a potion. And you're like, I don't know if I want to do that for you because I think you're trying to kill her for some reason. I like the ambiguity there. It allows you to make a choice or be oblivious and accidentally kill someone you didn't mean to kill. Like, that's good gameplay, I think. But the fact that unless you look it up, I don't know. I have a hard time imagining anyone is going to stumble onto Nefeli because she's downstairs in an area that once you've explored the first time, the game has given you no reason to go back down there. And so unless you're just being incredibly thorough, you're never going to stumble upon her again. And then the whole thing with Gideon, again, I feel like the relationship hadn't been made very clear at that point. And I could just be forgetting, but that's also the problem. There's so much going on in the game and so many characters and such a big world that maybe by the time I get back to Round Table Hold, I don't remember that Gideon is connected to Nefeli, because that's the thing. There's characters all throughout this game, some of which are connected to multiple characters, but you kind of have to remember who's tethered to who. Mm-hmm. So that when things happen with a specific character, you know who to go talk to and who it's affected. I did not remember that Gideon was connected.
I don't think it was
Nefeli.
made clear, because while I was talking to Gideon after figuring out I needed to like talk with him more, he then says, "Oh, I'm Nefeli's stepfather." And when you go find her in the basement and she's depressed, she's like, "Oh, he's my father." Like, then they give you a little bit of exposition. So I could be wrong. Maybe they did drop a hint, but the first time you go to Round Table Hold, you have no idea what's going on, so it's harder to retain some of that information. And I know some people are like, "Oh, well, you need to take notes." Well, I am taking notes, and I didn't have that in my notes
too. Yeah,
so
exactly.
I don't know that I encountered that.
Yeah, the one with Gideon's a little more forgivable because in time you will interact with Gideon again. Like, he's a character. He's in an area you check frequently when you go back to the Round Table Hold, so you'll see, oh, you have some different dialogue here, and that's more forgivable. The Nefeli thing, it's like, I don't know if I would have ever found her if not for looking it up. So I as well have had to very carefully kind of scope out quest lines and be like, okay, I just need a hint as to like what's going on here so I can go progress this. And I've been constantly thinking about this with Elden Ring, because on one hand, I want it to be better, but like I said, I want it to be like just barely tweaked. I don't want an overhaul here. But at the same time, I also kind of had a counterpoint thought the other day. And that's that FromSoft are trying to create a very real feeling world, a very immersive world where your experience is your experience. Like, they've already made it clear they don't care if you experience all the content in the game. They don't care if you
Mm-hmm.
miss a dungeon. They don't care if you miss this quest line. They don't care. They don't care if you wanted to progress this quest line and accidentally ended it. Like that's how they be. So um, on the one hand, I can respect that as like, you know, your playthrough is in a way kind of like a snowflake, right? Like it is very unique to you. The characters you come across, the quest lines you finish, the quest lines you start and fail to finish because you just never ran into the person again. Like that's just real life. Like that is your odyssey through the lands between.
Yeah.
So I can respect that, but at the same time, it is a game, and it's frustrating to be like, I like this character, I like this quest line, I want to progress it. I have no idea how to do so.
Yeah.
I don't. It's tough. I don't know how you. I don't know how you repair it. I don't know if it needs to be repaired. It's a very tough dilemma.
I think there's one simple answer: quest logs, mini map markers. Just kidding.
NFTs.
I
I thought you were going to say NFTs.
I don't even know how NFTs would solve this, but yeah, definitely. I
Oh
it's
man.
yeah. I think if I had to, like, I would rather err on the side of it being too obtuse, because I think that philosophy in the design decisions they made very intentional, somewhat polarizing choices, and that's exactly why this game is so much more strong as a whole, and why it hits so
Yeah.
hard for the people who love it, because it picked a stance, and I overall I'm fine with it. Like, I
Yeah.
would rather them not mess it up than anything. I think the one thing you've said that could have made this better is if they could make some of the dialogue itself just a touch more clear. Like, in this case, hey, Nefeli might be by the round table hold. Her dad's there. Check there. Talk to some people. Even that, like, don't even tell me exactly who to talk to. But if I have a heads up that, okay, I need to go back to round table hold. Thanks for reminding me that exists, first of all, because it's like
Yeah.
way off the map. And that I should be looking for people to talk to. And that helps train you. I think the more Elden Ring you play, maybe the better this becomes, because you start to realize how the world is changing as you progress, which is something I love about it. Like, you'll go talk to people later and the dialogue changes. Like, you talk to the blacksmith at Round Table Hold and he has other things to say later. And it just makes it feel more real. But some of those things you have to learn. So I think the mildest improvement could be nice, but overall, having to
Yeah.
look it up and just being kind of very precise about what I'm looking up has worked okay for me. I haven't spoiled anything major for myself. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think just a little bit more location information would be nice. I think that's about it because most of my complaints have come from, okay, I kind of know in general where this quest line is going, but I have no idea where this person is.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is I think you're intended to find them organically, which sounds great. That sounds great on paper.
And
But
when it
if you
happens,
don't,
it is great.
it is great. But if you don't find them, the world is so huge, you don't know at which point you might have passed them.
Right.
So as you're playing, you're like, okay, I think I'm fine. And then hours and hours later, you'll be like, okay, I clearly missed them, and they could be literally anywhere. It's just
Yeah.
so I don't know, it's tough. But anyways, yeah, as far as my playthrough, good lord, I'm still this game is so long, man.
Yeah.
Uh
You're almost halfway through at 200 hours now. So,
yeah, no, it feels like that, seriously. In the best ways. I'm getting a
mhm.
little like I want to see the end of this game, and I'm getting a touch fatigued, but man, I just love it's still so good.
Mhm.
And the areas I've been really pleased with, because when you first start, oh, actually, really quick before I get into kind of some of my stuff, I want to know your ranking for the first two dungeons that you've done so far, because you've done Stormvale and you've done the Academy,
Ah,
and which one
oh
ranks
man,
where and why
that
out
is
of
such a tough
all two of
question.
them.
They're both very good and very different. I think what I love is it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm in the next castle and it's very similar and I fight the next. It's so different. It's hard for me to actually compare them. Stormvale was a great first dungeon. It gave you one of the most epic castles I've ever explored. and
The
you're not just going
quintessential castle.
but beyond. It's uh, like the uber castle of like, kind of like the idealized version of what the coolest gothic castle could ever be. Um, and it is that in spades. And you're not just going through it. Like, one of the things, and this is more of their level design in general, but you start off going up to this castle, and then you're going around on the cliff sides trying to find a way in, and there's holes in the wall. And this castle is the scale of, like, I don't know, like a
A castle.
skyscrapers. This is bigger than, if you've seen real world castles, this is considerably larger.
It's
Like,
huge. Yeah.
it's like 10 times how big a castle would be in real life. And the
Yeah.
cliff sides are not 100 feet to the water like you might maybe see if you went
That's
to
true.
Germany or
Hundreds,
somewhere
if not thousands.
thousands of feet to the water.
Very
And there's
fantasy.
it's so good. And so you're like, oh, you're winding along the edge, trying not to fall off the cliffs, and then you're in the castle, and then all of a sudden you're on top of the the turrets in the battlements, and you're like jumping across rooftops at points, or like the you're in all of the coolest places on a castle. Like, as a kid, if you look at a toy castle and you like put your characters on the top, you get to go up on the top, on the tippy top. It makes no sense, but they make the level design do that in a way that feels very natural.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah, you're not just progressing room to room. You're around, you're through, you're on top of the castle.
And
Like you're just
they
it
do it in the
takes you
most
everywhere.
they do it in the most creative and organic ways. It feels
Yeah.
natural, and yet it's wildly like, I never would have thought of that path, but it also felt very real and immersive. Um, so that was such a good first experience. But I feel like the Academy does that too, just in a different way. And so at the Academy, you're again probably 1,000 feet in the air. This Academy is sitting up in the clouds, and it's like a college campus of like, it's not, maybe not quite as big as Stormvale, uh, but I think if you count in all the verticality, it probably is.
I
Um,
think it's smaller. If I just
it
had to
might be a
guess, I think it's smaller. But
so it might be a touch smaller, but that's similar, where you have to get up, find a way to get up into this castle, and you have to find a magic key and fight a dragon and teleport in, um,
yeah,
and then you're like going through the kind of the underground, like the skunk works of this place. There's a giant wheel underground that's, I'm sure, has some arcane and some purpose, and you're kind of going up from underneath, and then all of a sudden you're on the Academy grounds, and there's staircases swooping, and these very academic, gothic,
it's a
Victorian
grand
looking
library.
buildings and libraries and chapels. And then the next thing you know, you're on the rooftops again, and you're jumping from rooftop to rooftop, thousands of
Yeah,
feet in the
swinging
sky.
with your web.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But you're thousands of feet in the sky, jumping from like chapel rooftop to chapel rooftop, is a knight with a giant axe or whatever you have, running from all kinds of monsters. It's so cool. And then the
Which are
boss is,
apparently on the rooftop for some reason.
yeah, it's great, but it
Chilling.
makes sense too, like, for some reason. And then the boss is also I feel like the boss is maybe more, a touch more. Godric's pretty cool, but Renala is very unique. Like, there's a first phase to her boss fight that is very, um just gives you certain vibes that are very interesting.
Yeah.
And then the second phase is like, also has really cool vibes. So I don't know that I can pick yet. Part of me, I feel like maybe I 1% like Stormvale Castle more, but it's really hard for me to say. What
Okay.
about you?
So Stormvale is number one.
If I have to pick,
I'm gonna
gun
make
to
you
my
say
head,
it.
gun to
Yep.
my head, I can't decide and I get killed over this. What about you?
Okay. Between the two of them, I can't pick. No, I've had a hard
We
time
both get
deciding
killed
between the
over
two.
this.
I'm gonna have to sit down and really rank all of the dungeons at the end of this game, because really none of them have been lacking. Which, what would you expect?
Yeah.
That's kind of how FromSoft made their name. Honestly, a lot of people point straight to the difficulty, but I really think the level design is probably the greatest thing that FromSoft have been able to accomplish in most of their games. And I remember going through Stormvale Castle the first time. I was enjoying Elden Ring. I was enjoying the open world exploration. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I got into Stormvale Castle, and I was like, this is where FromSoft shine. Like, this is just the best gameplay. This is what I love about what they make. Um, the thing is, the Academy I love in ambiance much better. The ambiance at the Academy is just it's so great. I love how you take that elevator and the entire atmosphere changes. You're in the clouds. There's this blue haze mist to the whole thing. Um, but I think if we're just talking, if we take the blue haze out of the equation, then I do think Stormvale is a better um, dungeon. You know, when all is said and done, I think there's a lot more to it. It's a lot more intricate, and we're a little bit splitting hairs there because they're both fantastic.
They're both intricate and splendid. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm with you. It's a very tough choice, and not just because I'm indecisive, because they're neck and neck. And if that is just going to be a pattern throughout, I would rather have the problem of not knowing how to rank these than being like, oh, this one was amazing, but this one was just whatever. And not that I expected that, but it's impressive, their level design, and it's so on display here. And I have to say, the juxtaposition between the expansiveness and the sheer breadth of the open world and the way you traverse it, and then going into this epic dungeon, those two things complement each other so well. I was worried that they wouldn't click. And you've talked about how like you much prefer these dungeons to the open world components, and I think I do too. But I also love that you're going back and forth, and it makes me feel like I'm on this quest to find these magnificent dungeon experiences to have. And I don't know, like, and then you go back out into the open world after having conquered this amazing boss. You've spent hours and hours overcoming it, and you have better gear, you're stronger, and you go back out into the open world and you feel like you can take more on, and then you're on to find the next place to go. And it's just such a cool mix of everything. And I legitimately, I know we talked about like earlier in this episode, what are games that have given you feelings like this? And for that reason, it's easy to say Breath of the Wild or Hollow Knight. But in the strictest sense, I don't know that I've quite ever gotten this mix of feelings so strongly in this form, where I can't wait to keep going. Like, I loved Breath of the Wild, but I would be able to put it down. You know, I'd lose myself in it for time, and I was fine putting it down. Hollow Knight is amazing, but something about Elden Ring is it is such a good combination of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, in case you didn't know it, it might be Transcendent, this video game here. So
yeah, I know that's a real hot take, but
yeah. I'll keep my escapades to a little more vague because I'm further in the game than you, and for those of you who maybe haven't gotten so far,
spoilers don't matter for our audience, but they matter for me.
Exactly. But those of you who have gotten far enough will know what I'm talking about. But since we last spoke, I have made it to the capital and fully explored the capital, which is huge. I think it's definitely bigger than Stormvale. There's a couple different tiers to it, and man, just huge. It's legitimately like you're exploring a capital city. You know, maybe in my mind's eye I would picture something a little bigger for a capital city, but like, nitpicking there. I mean, this is a huge labyrinth experience to navigate through. Made it to the Erd Tree and then beyond, and then there's a whole another zone, you know, that's gave me I think I told you this, God of War Ragnarok vibes. Like God of War Ragnarok cool. Aspires to be as epic as this zone after the capital.
That's quite a statement too. And I know you say you say that as a major fan of God of War too.
Yeah. So yeah, it's obviously it doesn't have the narrative chops to compete with what God of War did, but I just mean set piece wise and epicness wise. I mean, not sandbox, skybox. You know, the areas you're looking at and the sheer. You know, you talk about the cliffs at Stormvale and how just fantastically immense they are. This area, it's called the Mountain of the Giants, and it's very fitting. I mean, it's just huge. You're looking at giant cliffs and corpses of giants that are hundreds of feet. Like it's hard to imagine how big they are, you know. So very cool area. Subsequently, while exploring that area and pulling on some narrative threads, I found a whole new area that one would not know existed until it is revealed to you. Some people talk about it a little bit. They mention what's called the Halig tree, and there's no way to know what that means or what that is. You know, it sounds like it's a location, and you're like, okay, cool. I mean, Halig tree, Erd tree. I don't know. And yeah, just a whole new area that's this giant dungeon that is probably, you know, right up there with the biggest in the game. Just this huge place with a key story boss, and it's been incredibly difficult. I mean, the difficulty spike. The other thing I kind of want to speak to in this game is that as much as I love this game, I do a little bit. I can tell that a sacrifice had to be made with the intended experience, as we like to talk about. In that, towards the second half of the game, I became very powerful, and I was stomping a lot of main bosses, like in the capital. I was kind of burning through them real quick, and I was a little bummed out about it because I'm like, man, that's not the experience, right? You're not supposed to meet this boss at the Erd tree, beat him first try just by kind of face tanking and doing a bunch of damage. Uh, you know, that's not a memorable experience, especially for your first playthrough. But then I get to these later zones, and holy crap, the difficulty takes another massive spike, and it's like, okay, this is probably I probably just did too much. You can tell, oh, I did too much, and then I became over leveled for this area, and now the level is caught back up with me, and I'm getting my butt handed to me. Essentially, is what's happening here. And as of right now, I am fighting. And this isn't too much of a spoiler because I think you find out about this pretty early on from Gideon. He kind of tells you, "Hey, you've conquered these guys. There's more guys out there. Go find them." One of them is named Millennia. And for those
I've
of you
heard
who
of
know,
Millennia.
like,
Yeah.
Millennia is, I've heard, I've seen, I've tried not to see, but I've seen on YouTube, like, Millennia, hardest boss ever in the whole history of the universe, and blah, blah, blah.
That's what I've heard as well.
And dear Lord, she is just such bullcrap. Like, I'm trying to respect it, and, like, I get it. I'll get over it. I'll get through the boss. But she literally feels like a Sekiro boss. Like, 80% Sekiro and 20% Bloodborne in a Dark Souls game. And it just feels so cheesy. Like, if ever the player cheesed a boss fight, this is the boss cheesing the fight. Like, she has so many moves that it just feels like there's nothing you can do against them. She has a flurry of, like, blade attacks that she does, and literally there is no way to dodge it. She does 3 in a row, and there is, I mean, I'll have to see if there's a video of someone doing it. I cannot figure out how to dodge through it. There's just too many attacks. FromSoft have clearly timed her attacks specifically to exploit the amount of time it takes you to dodge and then dodge again. Like, her timing is such a pain in the butt. The only way I've found to deal with it so far is you just have to bust out a great shield and make sure you have a bunch of stamina and try and, like, tank the first one and then dodge through the second one. Like, it's this whole thing. And she's just, and of course she has a second phase. I mean, the first phase could be the worst boss ever, but the second phase, just, I get my face melted off as soon as I get into it. So I've been beating my face against that boss for, let's see, I had some time to play on Sunday. I think I played her for like 3 hours.
Wow.
And I've also, for those who haven't watched or whatever, but I've been playing this game without summons, which up until now has not been a problem. No summons. I have not used a summon once on a boss fight, and I don't usually summon the NPCs either unless I think it's really cool for story reasons. And this fight, I'm genuinely looking at it like, I do not know how I'm going to beat this boss short of over leveling for it, which at the level I'm at, I don't know is possible, honestly. Like, I don't know how much stronger I can get with the weapon I'm using. Succumbing to using the summons. Yeah, actually, I don't.
Can
I
you
don't have
over
any other
level by
options.
adding more health or more stamina, so you could?
I could
hold your
add
shield
more health and
longer or live
stamina.
a little longer.
I could add more health and stamina, and I've thought about respecking just to put any stats I don't need into that. But
Hmm.
I mean, we're talking pretty minimal return on health and stamina. My bar would go from this to this. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not going to do it at the end of the day. And I've gotten to the point where I can burn through her first phase pretty quick, 50% of the time. But her second phase is just crazy. And so I don't know. That's kind of it's tough with this game because I might just give in and start using summons. I don't know. We talk a lot about intended experience, and I'm starting to see like these later fights clearly have been tuned with the thought that you have these powerful summons in mind. I mean, there's a summon that literally is a duplicate of your character. And if you max that out, there's two
Oh,
of you
interesting.
fighting one, right? Like, so
There you
any of the
go.
powerful,
There's the
any of the
answer to your
powerful
problem.
summons, yeah, they're counting on you having this plus 10 summon with you.
Yeah.
And this boss, more than any I've faced so far, really feels like FromSoft expecting you to be doing that. And if you're not, the fight feels incredibly broken. So
Yeah.
I don't know. The only other option is I've started to try and learn how to parry her, which I have not parried once in this game. I have parried in Dark Souls games before,
I'm avoiding it too,
but
and I feel
yeah.
like I'm putting off something I really should be learning.
No, honestly, for most of the game, you don't need to parry. Like, it's such a needless, it's kind of a show offy thing. Like, it's cool
Yeah.
if you can do it, but most times it's impractical and you end up taking damage you don't need to take. You can just hide behind a shield that actually protects you, you know?
Hmm.
But with this fight, it's like, and the thing is too, with her, I started trying to parry her. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to learn to parry her and I'm going to do visceral attacks over and over again. You have to parry her 3 times before she gets into the
Before you can do
position where
the
you
stab
have to
attack.
parry her 3 times before she'll do that. And it's just like, I don't know. So that's where I'm at. I'm at my first real like wall that I've
I
hit. And I
mean,
have a
if you're
couple.
fighting the supposedly hardest FromSoft boss ever, like that kind of fits. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. I mean, it is what
So
it is.
it feels like that now, but maybe that's yeah. I'm
Yeah,
sure
it's
I'm sure
tough.
someone's beat her without summons, but
Oh no,
pro-
I literally just watched a video on YouTube that came up of a dude beating her at level 1 with
oh
no
my god,
summons.
are you serious?
And he
You just
legitimately
you just have to be
like
perfect.
straight up naked. And he goes up in there and he just parries her over and over and over and over
Okay,
again
so that's the way
until
to
she's
do it.
dead.
Yeah, that's
And
the
I
way
was
to do
just
it
like,
if you
okay,
can get good enough at it.
yeah, I was like, okay, this guy did it at level 1 with a weapon that does no damage. If I can get good at parrying her, I should be able to beat her. And I tried it for like half an hour, 45 minutes, and it's just here's the other problem with her. Not to go on forever, but if you're trying to parry her, and you're not 100% perfect, she heals when she does damage to you.
Oh,
And
jeez.
so you'll get 3 perfect parries off. You'll get her health down to 3/4, and then you'll miss the next parry, and she'll hit you a couple times, and she's almost back up to full health, and you're just like, okay, well this fight is so broken. So I sympathize with FromSoft because I can't imagine it's easy to design a boss that is incredibly difficult, but also feels not like bullcrap. And this one crosses the line a little bit to me, but they've also given us additional tools that I'm not making use of. So at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it might be my fault, but
Well, in my
it
experience, it
is what
feels
it
like
is.
bullcrap until you finally beat it, and you're like, "Yes, I am good
You're
at
like,
this."
that
Because
was that was the best
that's
fight
how I was
ever.
feeling about Renala. There's a couple of things she was doing that I would breeze through the first phase, get through part of the second phase, and then she just had a couple of attacks that just would hit me at the wrong moment. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is cheap. This is unfair. This is stupid." And then I
Yeah.
beat her, and I was like, "What a well made boss fight."
What a perfect chef's kiss. Well, you know what? For me, I think part of it is that if this was a pre Sekiro era, I think I would be less critical. I would have a less critical lens. But I truly think that FromSoft changed the game with Sekiro, and the boss fights and the combat in that game are absolute perfection. There's not one boss in that game that I feel is bad or feels cheesy or and there's a lot of people that may disagree, but I played a lot of Sekiro. I beat that game. I got the platinum. I did the boss gauntlet. I completed the gauntlet where you fight every boss in the game in one go, and some of them have harder variants and everything. Like I
Sounds like
love that
torture.
game. It was so much fun. It's one of the greatest feelings of accomplishment I've ever gotten out of a video game. And so now, knowing that Sekiro is a thing, when a boss feels like it's playing by Sekiro's rules, but all you can do is dodge or hold up a shield, it just doesn't feel as good, and it keeps making me think that. So
Yeah,
that's part
I
of
could
it.
totally see that. I think the problem is they're optimizing for different things than Sekiro, but they're tried to bring a little bit of that uh, technical challenge from it, which
Flair.
I think
Yeah.
works sometimes. But you're going to hit some of the frustration because this game can't be Sekiro with what they're doing with it being open world and the fact that you can over level potentially, the fact that they give you these other tools that add a very unique flavor. I think the summons and some of these things they make Elden Ring feel very unique and different, but they do change the combat. So
Yeah.
I could
I would
totally
love to
understand that.
see, this is an extraneous thought here, and I don't know that it's actually possible, but it would be really cool to see if FromSoft has what it takes to combine Dark Souls and Sekiro into one game so that you can play how you want to play. If you want to sword and board, you know, magical stuff, or you want to dodge through everything you can, or if you want to, you know, elaborate on the parry and the posture system and incorporate them into one game. I don't know if that's possible. That sounds incredibly hard to do, but man,
Yeah.
it would be cool if you could come to a boss like Millennia and be like, this is, I'm gonna Sekiro this boss, and you bust out
Mm-hmm.
your swords and you're parrying and you're breaking her posture, and then you come to a boss that's clearly more of a Bloodborne type boss, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna get up my shield, I'm gonna roll through these attacks. It'd be cool if you could do both in one game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's possible, but
Yeah. Well, maybe they'll figure it out. Either way, uh, that still sounds awesome. I'm I'm kind of terrified to get, like if you're having this much trouble with Millennia, I'm doomed.
yeah,
But
you're gonna have to cheese her. But you do have your
that's
summons, which you've been using, so
I do. I will
it'll be a
use
little bit
summons,
easier.
and that's a problem for me 5 months from now. So
If that, yeah,
if
if
that,
that.
yeah.
So it's crazy. I mean, you get towards the end of the game, and right, you're set out at the beginning. Your quest is to go get these great runes from some of the offspring of America. It seems right, and you're given, I think, like 4 or 5 names, and you're like, okay, so those are the 4 or 5 main bosses of the game.
Right.
And
There's
at some
nothing more
point, it
than that.
changes. Yeah, at some point it changes, and you get 2 or 3 of them, and you're like, oh, there's only 2 left. And then you go talk to Gideon, and he's like, there are four more unlocated whatever they are, you know, and he gives the names and stuff, and you're like, holy crap, there are legitimately 4 more like main people, and we have no idea where they are on the map.
I'm getting chills. I love that.
It's crazy. And so I'm at Millennia now, and there's still 3 more. I have no idea where they're at. I know
I
probably
thought
where one
Millennia was the
is.
last boss. I guess she's just the hardest.
Maybe I'm doing
I
this out
guess it
of
depends
order.
on the order you go in. Yeah.
As I was going through the Halig tree, I was like, this place seems a little overtuned. Maybe I should go check out the other ones. But I just kept going. I just kept beating my head against the wall and getting through it, and now here I am. But yeah, it's nuts that you get to that point, and it's just like, it's cool. It's a game to end all games for sure. So, but
But
at the same time, there are other games that still exist, I hear.
there
And
are.
have you been playing any of those other games?
I have. I'm glad you asked. I've actually been playing Death's Door on my Nintendo Switch, and the way I'm able to play these games,
Not a
like if I
sponsor.
could, I would. Yeah, or am I making crazy money? Um, if I could sit down and only play Elden Ring from now until the time I finish it, I would. But I have kids. I'm out and about a lot. Sometimes I don't have the attention span, or I can't have the focus I need for Elden Ring. I don't want to be interrupted while playing that game, so I carry my Switch around and I can play that here and there. And I've finally been playing through Death's Door, which I picked up a couple months ago. I started it shortly before Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West came out. I played maybe 30 minutes to an hour of it, and maybe a little more than that. But I didn't quite click with it. I thought it was kind of neat, but it wasn't pulling me in. Put it aside. I've had a lot of games since then. I started playing it again a week or so ago, and I'm really enjoying it. I don't know exactly how far I am, but I think I'm closing in on the end. I've beat the major bosses they've talked about, um, except for I think 2, as far as I know. So
Trying
I
to
guess
remember. I mean, can
spoilers
you
for
vet?
Death's Door,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I mean,
um, so I have beat the Urn Witch, I have beat the Frog King, and I am on the Beast boss. I'm just about on the Beast,
okay.
and then after that, I think you fight. I think it's queuing me up to fight the Lord of Doors, and my guess is he's the final boss. So there might be more to it that I'm missing. I don't know how much more exploration there is after this, based on the layout of all the levels and kind of the hub area. I feel like I'm definitely in the latter game. Maybe I'm way off, but I'm about
No, I
15
think
hours
you
into
are.
it. Yeah. And obviously compared to Elden Ring, it's not Elden Ring, but is a isometric game that I'm playing, is kind of a palate cleanser. It's a lot of fun.
It's a
The
Zelda-like, I think is
It's
the
Zelda
easiest way to
like.
describe it.
Yeah, and the combat's pretty fun. There's a nice mix of different abilities. The exploration is relatively satisfying. Some of the level design's pretty good. I like the aesthetic of some of the areas. Some of the areas were okay. Some I really like. It kind of is a mixed bag in that way. But overall, it's a pretty good game. Like, this is a solid 8 out of 10 for me, I think. Um, Definitely recommend it. I thought I wasn't going to enjoy it that much, but yeah, I will probably finish that up in the next couple of days here, and yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. You beat
Nice.
Death's Door, right?
Yeah, I beat Death's Door. I believe that was right at the start of the year. Right early January I was playing through that. And yeah, I kind of came away from that game, I don't know, a little apathetic, but I think the game is super solid. I think it's actually a really good game, and if you like Zelda-like games, if you like um, isometric action with kind of a dodge, a roll mechanic in the combat, I mean, it's good. It does what it does. It's kind of it's been done a lot recently, and it kind of took the world by storm last year, actually. But it's a
Yeah,
perfectly good game. I really don't have many critiques of it, other than I kind of got done with it and was like, I don't know. It didn't leave an impression on me really beyond. It was kind of one of those games where immediately when I finished it, I kind of just forgot about it.
mm,
And so for me, I wouldn't say it's a must play game for anybody. But if it meets the criteria, or you want kind of a smaller experience on a handheld system or something like that, it's I would agree. I think an
yeah,
8 out of 10 is perfectly acceptable for Death's Door.
yeah. 8.5. It's really good. I don't think this will be a top 10 of all time game for me or anything like that, but it might be one of them. It might be relatively high on the list for the year. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of good games this year, but it's kind of a stacked year. I really like it. The writing is also really good. Like, the characters are quirky. The dialogue is often funny. There's a lot of personality to the characters you meet, and I like that aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
So it's made me like audibly chuckle multiple times, which is saying a lot for any game.
There you go. I don't
So
recall that, so maybe I wasn't
we were
paying enough
breezing through
attention,
it.
but
Yeah, like there's some funny moments. Like,
maybe.
not all of it. There's some pretty funny moments. So
And I just now am recalling, by the way, there it does pull a bit of an Elden Ring on you. We're going to start
okay.
using that phrase all the time, but there is some more
Okay.
after you think you're done. There's some more going
Okay.
on, so it does some cool things. But is that the only other one
That's
you've
it
been
for
up to?
me. Yeah. Are you playing anything else besides Elden Ring, or has it consumed you?
Yes, to both. So not too much actually. We jumped into me and my wife jumped into SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom because it was on PlayStation Plus this month,
I hear
and
that's like Elden Ring.
it's very similar, very similar. But I had my eye on it for a while, but it was never one of those where I kind of justified putting money down for it. It was more of a nostalgia pull than anything, right? Um, so we played that. I think it might have been Saturday night, and we got like an hour or two in, and I was just like bored to tears. I started
Huh.
letting her play a little bit because she wanted to play, and I was just like, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's me or the game. I don't know if it's a boring game, or if I'm might actually be getting too old for nostalgia to win me over in a game, because there's
Hmm.
plenty of nostalgia here for SpongeBob if you grew up watching it. But it just wasn't carrying the day for me. I was just and maybe I was just not in the right mindset or mood after playing too much Elden Ring or whatever, but I don't know if I'll be going back to that. It was just very very simplistic, and it's a kids game. It's a kids game from forever ago that's been remade. What did I expect? But for some reason, the nostalgia wasn't pulling through for me. So yeah, I don't know about that. And then the other one I've been back to a little bit, of course, is Genshin. It's kind of my daily game. Yeah, I know when I have time, my shameful game that I play. But it did just recently come out with a patch. I don't know what the patch number is, but more of almost like an expansion, what you would equate to an expansion, right? For Destiny or something like that.
Yeah.
One of the bigger patches. And they actually, it's a patch where they added a new location to the map, which is getting enormous. Quite honestly, I was showing someone who's never played, and just, I mean, this game, it rakes in the money because it's a gacha game, right? And it sucks, and the monetization is horrible. It don't support it. But at the same time, at least if they're raking in the money, they seem to be putting a lot into the game. Like there's constantly large quantities of new real estate being added to the game. It's very impressive. And this recent one was also impressive. I mean, you look at it on the map, and let's say the map is this big. The area that was added is called the Chasm, and it's like this big. And you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty small. But I mean, relatively speaking, keep in mind this is huge. So it's still a big area you're exploring, but the verticality within it is also impressive. It's just like Elden Ring. But it's a chasm, right? Like a mining facility type situation where it's going into the earth. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a pretty good size. This is cool. Like, I'm liking it. Well, eventually you open up the chasm and you go underground where there's another huge map area with several areas for you to uncover. And it's just like enormous.
It's awesome.
So anyways, yeah, it's actually been pretty cool. I mean, the gameplay in Genshin makes absolutely no sense if you've never played it and you watch it. It's just chaos and colors everywhere. But once you get used to it and you build a team, it's actually pretty fun to play and engage with. And yeah, I don't know. I've been able to play it successfully without opening the wallet, and I've had fun with it. So this has been a fun little patch expansion they've added, and a nice break from the slightly more dreary, deadly world of the Lands Between. So
I love chaos and colors. Honestly, I might need to try Genshin again. I kind of enjoyed it when I started it, but I've gotten sidetracked from it. So I may need to pick it back up at some point.
I don't know. Far be it from me to persuade anyone to play a gacha system game. They're awful. And also, you have such a backlog and children, which for some reason you made, and you don't have time for a daily game. No one does, honestly.
That is,
we all should just stop daily games, but
yeah,
here we are. So that's it for me, though. That's what I've been playing. I may be looking for any excuse to not go back and fight Malenia anytime soon, because
maybe need a break.
Know how I'm gonna get through that fight.
Take a week off Elden Ring, play something else.
Take a week. I gotta finish this game though.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't know how I'm gonna, like, I'm still playing through it and having a great time, but I could see getting. I don't want it to be smaller, but I could also see getting a little bit fatigued because of what this game is. So I don't know. Lego Star Wars came out. I picked that up, so that might be a fun one to dip into at some point.
I'm looking forward to that one. I've heard good things. I've also heard it's way more enormous than it has any right to be. So I'm like,
developers
it's time
are
to finish
on.
these now.
I know.
I don't know. So, okay. Well, I think that's everything for NeverQuest this week. If you stuck with us all the way till the end, we appreciate you. And maybe hang around a little bit longer. Oh man, everything is falling. Hang around a little bit longer and maybe like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, and we will be sure to catch you next time on NeverLag.